The Book of Expanded Deism by Jason X. Chapter 7, Suffering. Question 77. What is suffering? Answer 77. Suffering is undesirable pain. That is pain that is more harmful than helpful. Question 78. Why does the divine make or allow creatures to suffer? Answer 78. The divine makes or allows creatures to suffer to teach rational creatures what they need to learn to be perfected. And the divine does it to test rational creatures to determine if they deserve to be perfected or disciplined. The divine might also do it to make this life more worthwhile and to make things more interesting. Question 79. How does suffering teach rational creatures what they need to learn to be perfected? Answer 79. Suffering teaches rational creatures virtues such as humility, thankfulness, and bravery. Suffering humbles rational creatures because it makes them realize that they are weak compared to the divine. If they were powerful like the divine, they would stop their own suffering and probably the suffering of others too. Suffering makes rational creatures thankful because they, and/or others, are not suffering more than they already are. Suffering enables rational creatures to be brave because it gives them great difficulties to overcome. Question 80. How does suffering make this life more worthwhile? Answer 80. Suffering makes this life more worthwhile because without it, this life would be like a video game in which things happen, but no one really gets hurt. It takes no sacrifice to be relatively good without suffering, and it is not evil to act like one is harming a creature who cannot suffer, just like it is not evil to do harmful-looking things to a video game character who cannot feel pleasure or pain. Because there is suffering, rational creatures have to make choices with important consequences. Question 81. How does suffering make things more interesting? Answer 81. Suffering makes this life more interesting because it adds another aspect to this life. One, perhaps the only one, that most creatures hate. Suffering makes most stories more interesting because most stories are boring unless their characters have problems to overcome. And suffering creates problems to overcome more easily than anything else. Every creature's life and every group of creatures' history are a type of story because they are one related event after another. Without suffering, most of the stories of individual creatures and groups of creatures would be boring, or at least much less interesting. Question 82. How does suffering test rational creatures to determine if they deserve to be perfected or disciplined? Answer 82. One cannot be relatively good unless one, at least occasionally, chooses to suffer for the benefit of someone else. And one cannot be relatively evil unless one, at least occasionally, chooses to make someone else suffer unjustly. Question 83. Why is it better to be happy in the next life than in this life? Answer 83. This life is a relatively short period of time compared with eternity, which is how long life lasts in heaven. Very long ago, the divine had a choice: make more happiness in the short term by not allowing suffering anywhere, or make more happiness in the long term by allowing much suffering in a safe way. With the possible exceptions of reformatory and other place, suffering is completely confined to the universe. If we are not reincarnated back into the universe once we die, we escape the suffering in the universe forever. It is better to suffer much for less than 130 years in the universe, and then to have complete happiness forever in heaven, than to never achieve complete and eternal happiness. Question 84. How might the divine punish relatively evil creatures in reformatory? Answer 84. Perhaps the divine will make them feel part of or all the suffering that they unjustly caused others. However, whatever punishment the divine gives, it will be for the greater good and will not last forever. The good purposes of punishment are to deter injustice, create justice, and encourage relatively evil creatures to become relatively good creatures. Question 85. Suppose that a person has been relatively evil for most of her long life. Then, in the last decade of her life, the person changes and becomes relatively good. She is truly sorry for what she has done, and now always tries to live according to all the teachings of the Book of Expanded Deism. Does this person still have to be disciplined and reformatory as soon as she dies? Answer 85. Justice is when a being gets exactly what he, she, or it deserves. And justice is extremely helpful for enabling pleasant relationships after one person has purposefully and unfairly hurt another person. Once the victimizer is properly punished and has truly repented, and the victim is properly compensated, they can have a pleasant and productive relationship, perhaps even a close and loving relationship. But without justice, such a relationship is not likely to happen, for at least these reasons. Simply speaking, justice calms anger, and victims want justice. Therefore, I suspect that the person in question would still be punished for the sake of justice, but should be punished much less than she would have been punished if she had not changed her ways for the better. The divine is extremely knowledgeable, powerful, wise, and just. All good actions will be adequately rewarded, and all evil actions will be adequately punished. Thank you for watching. Please like, subscribe, and/or comment. May reason, compassion, and hope prevail.